Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the ISB live quarantine show. I hope that you're doing fine, you and your families enjoy the blessed moments that's coming ahead of us. Like next week will be, inshallah, it will be the first 10 days and nights of the Hajj, a very spiritual days and moments for Muslims. And those are the days that I would say that those are the transformational days. So anyone would like to acquire new habits, think about good deeds. Those are the days and nights that you can, I would say, rebirth yourself again. And today I have a very dear guests that used this transformational Hajj trip to transform himself, blessed with that. And the episode title today is an American Muslim transformational Hajj, and he will walk us through his journey, how he was transformed by this amazing journey of the Hajj. And let me first introduce my guest. My guest is a poet, author, and a film producer. His name is Dr. I would say Brother Michael Wolfe. Michael is a poet, author, and award-winning film producer, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's a co-founder of the Unity Production Foundations, which produced 11 award-winning documentary films on Muslim themes. He also published 10 books of poetry, fiction, and travel. His books on Islam guide the Hajj, An American Journey to Mecca, which we drove from today, and 1,000 Roads to Mecca. And he also edited Taking Back Islam, an American Muslim reclaim their faith. With that very, I would say, not very good introduction for himself, he's much more than that. Please let me welcome my dear brother, Brother Michael. Brother Michael, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Like I have been asking me why having this A on my t-shirt. I said that this is the first letter of my name. Yeah. Brother Michael, just before you sharing with us your amazing story, we need to know first, when did you become a Muslim and what triggered you to be a Muslim? What is the trigger? Everyone like I interview, if he's converts, like there's a trigger, there's something, there's an incident that happened in their life that say that, hey, I need to change. And this is a major change. So can you share with us like what was this thing and why, what happened?
Sure, I'll try. It comes out a little differently each time. I think it would be good if we're going to talk in this way to say who I was before I became a Muslim, because I didn't become a Muslim until I was about 38. I had a lot of time to think about it. I escaped small town Ohio, I felt. At 18, went to college. I managed to get out of a pretty good college without learning anything about Islam, I admit. But I did, after that, take a big interest in North and West Africa. And I lived there for about 3 years after university, and that's where I met many Muslims. And in a way, because I hadn't any preconceived ideas, it was easy to make friends. And I did. I was very well treated in North and West Africa. And I got a good blast of Muslim culture. It was great. Both hospitality and the artfulness of the life. And also the way the religion kind of came out of the woodwork a lot of the time. It was a part and parcel of a lived experience in people's lives. So I really respected that and I liked it. I did not become a Muslim then by any means. I was a writer. I had jobs that involved writing. When I came back to the US, I taught writing. I also opened a bookstore and a book bindery. So I was all about books. And as you may guess, if you're a writer, you're a bit of a skeptic. You know, you have to dig underneath the appearances of things to have something to write about at all. And I did. So I followed that path of literature and art and reporting um, and writing and books and making books for some while. But I did notice as time went on that there was a more interesting side to life. And then I had a car accident, a bad one. And in getting better, getting back on my feet really after a couple of months, I looked for some exercises to do. And this will probably make you laugh, but I was in a bookstore looking for yoga books, exercise books.
Yeah.
And I bought a couple, but down on the bottom shelf, there was a $3 book printed in Pakistan of how to do the Muslim prayer. It said Salat across the top of it, and it had English translations of all of the Arabic. And I took it home along with the other books, and it became my favorite exercise. I taught myself, I was living way out in the country. There was no mosque around in any case. I taught myself how to pray the Salat, and I memorized the Arabic. It took me a while, but my back felt better. Prayer worked for me in a very simple and straightforward way. And I was very intrigued then. I had already had wonderful life experiences with Muslims, but now I was getting a taste of their religion. And at my age, by that time, almost 40, 38, that's kind of a crossroads period in one's life. And I felt ready to take on something fresh, something I could learn more about, something that would give me a practice in life. I had no idea yet of the relationships that I would form and what an ummah, the Muslim world is. But I discovered that later.
Wow, subhanAllah. This is very, very interesting. So it started by a car accident, and
Yes,
then you're like, say, didn't have the ability to move, so looking for exercises, and you went to a book store, and by coincidence, mere coincidence, you picked this book that talks about salat, about the prayer in Islam and the movements of the during the salat, and you practice that because you're injured, and from here something happened. The spark like came during those moments, and then after how many years like you become Muslim?
oh, well, it wasn't too much longer after that.
Okay.
When I could move and drive and so on, I started, I went to a mosque in San Jose on a Thursday, and I asked the Imam, Muhammad Siddiqui, Pakistani guy, if I could come and sit in the corner during the Friday prayers, during the Jummah prayer. And we talked for a while, and he said, sure, yes, that would be fine. He didn't mind. And that's what I did. I wasn't really ready to cross the line, to join, to accept Islam, to enter Islam, but I was certainly moving in that direction. And I wanted to know more, and I wanted to feel more. And I wanted to communicate with brothers and sisters in my own setting, not in Morocco or Ghana, but here in America. And a series of serious discoveries followed. Um, and then, somewhere in the period of the Hajj, about 6 or 8 weeks before, the khutbah started to be about Hajj, and I got really intrigued then. Um, and I think that also inspired me. The idea of a religion that sees life as a journey, um, and that it's a journey that we all are required to take, and that we can take, so for sure.
So
Uh,
hold on a second, because like
yeah,
this is another very interesting piece. So let's go back. A car accident, some
sure,
exercises,
sure,
bookstore,
yeah,
yoga,
yeah,
the book, and then after the book, attending Friday prayers, just observant, looking
correct.
what's going on, and then during the Hajj season, the Imam and the khutbah in Jum'ah prayer start talking about the journey of the Hajj and what's Hajj means spiritually for Muslims. And then from this point, you start to like that. So I say that's, yeah, you didn't like, you weren't at this point of like converting or conviction towards Islam. However, at this point, you said that, hey, looks like this journey is something that you're willing to consider, or like you want to go, or like, shall I?
You know, I saw right away the correspondence between the Hajj and a life journey. And the Hajj led me to that, just hearing about it, just understanding what goes on when you're on the plain of Arafat. You know, the idea of a dress rehearsal for Judgment Day, the idea of a journey to the center of spiritual life. All of that was very appealing to me, and very more than appealing, attractive. You know, in the way that the magnet attracts you. I did not go into Hajj that year, but I did become a Muslim after. You know, maybe a few months later. It was a very simple, you know, as you know, I mean, becoming a Muslim is becoming a Muslim is very easy. Being a Muslim,
Wow.
that's a journey. But actually, you know, being accepted into the community there in San Jose, it was made very simple for me. The Shahada is 2 sentences, you know, not too difficult. Some religions make much more of a hurdle out of it than that. And I was very taken by the metaphor of the Hajj, the meaning of it, although I had not made the pilgrimage. You know, there's one other thing about this. You'll probably find this amusing, but a couple of years before that, as I was a book publisher, you know, I published people's books for 20 years. I had a Moroccan storyteller friend named Mohammed Merabit, who had published about 10 books in English translations. And he wanted to make the Hajj. And he suggested, he was a friend as well as I published a couple of his books. And he invited me to come along with him as far as Jeddah, let's say, you know, and write a book about it. So I was already thinking about making this journey long before I had my car accident. So I had read about it. I had decided I probably wasn't going to write this book with Muhammad that year. But as it turned out, the following year I made my own Hajj. And or a year and a half later, about 2 years later, I made my own Hajj. So, you know, my life was playing with me in a way. You know, it was beginning to lead me in the direction of becoming a Muslim, making a Hajj. And my, you know, when I finally did make the Hajj, I thought that if there was enough of an experience in the 3 weeks I was there, I would write a book about it. I took along with me, I don't know if I have any of them here, but yes, I do. I took along with me a few little notebooks like this, you know, just paper. And when anything of interest happened, which was pretty often, I would jot it down. I had also gone to Morocco a month or two before because I didn't want this to be a fast journey. I wanted it to be a slow trip, you know, in which I learned, in which things happened to me, and I had a chance to reflect. And I had the good fortune that year to be able to make that work. So
I have many questions actually. Like, I need to know, first of all, you read and listened and heard about Hajj before being a Muslim.
correct.
And you have like your reflections about this beautiful journey. And then you became a Muslim.
Correct.
And You went to Hajj.
Yes.
So was there any discrepancy between what you have as a mind journey versus the reality?
Oh, yes, of course.
Share
Absolutely.
with us, share with us
Well,
the stuff that
one
you find like,
one
uh,
of the
yeah,
one of the biggest learnings, I would say, was the Hajj is about the people who are making the Hajj. Yes, there are rites. Yes, there are rituals. Yes, there are things that one must do on time and do them well. But I was told by my mutawif, by my guide, when I got there, a guy who knew much more about it than I did, that
yes, brother.
all that could be easily negated, wiped out, if I did one wrong thing to one of the Hajis, if I wasn't respectful to the people around me, if I didn't actually make an effort to help people who needed help and to stay out of the way when people needed to go somewhere, and just to be sensitive to the very, constantly changing situation of the Hajj. That, that was impressed upon me by the experience that I had from the moment I really set foot in the Haram Mosque, um, uh, until I left. That 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 was a big learning for me. I had thought of this as a set of rituals that needed to be performed properly, and that was it. Get in, get out. No, not in my experience of the Hajj. It's a much more enriching than that, and I really tried to take my time in the process of the Hajj. I went there 3 weeks ahead. It's still not a lot of time, but I could get a feel for the buildup of the pilgrimage, and I watched how people were connecting with each other. And I learned something about the Hajj being a kind of, I don't know what the metaphor would be, like the United Nations, uh,
Mm.
where you're just meeting people from all around the world, and you have assalamu alaikum in common, and you have your spirit in common. You have the fact that you are here together in common. It's a very powerful experience, which far exceeded my imagination of what the Hajj would be from.
Before like opening this notebook and share with us some of the learnings or some of the reflections that led you to write the book, I would like to say that we have some of our audience. Sister Warda Aziz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Warda is telling you, La ilaha illallah, Allahumma thabbitu ala dinik. May Allah reward you for that and stabilize you, fix you on Islam, inshallah. We have our brother Ibrahim Muhammad say salam, brother Michael, to welcome a Muslim is a bless from Allah. Then he will guide you because he is the one allowed you to become a Muslim. Yeah, that's like the triggers is being a signal from Allah that He allowed you to be a Muslim, and this is a blessing from Allah. So let's open like your memory, open your notebook, and share with us some of the things that you observed in Hajj that led you to reflect and write a book later on.
Well, the two most powerful, there were so many. I mean, but the two most powerful ritual moments uh, that I experienced on my first Hajj. I have been to Mecca a number of times now, but the first time, um, inevitably the tawaf, the turning, which for me was a late night experience. It was very hot here. I was there, and many of us we call ourselves midnight Hajis. We spent a lot of evening hours in the mosque. And the first time I made the tawaf in sort of the tawaf of arrival, um, uh, the experience was breathtaking, really. Um, to see people, to be doing this with a ring of human beings from so many different parts of the world, and the kind of the unifying experience of the tawaf, being that close to the Kaaba, was I remember when I walked into the mosque and saw the Kaaba for the first time. I looked to my right, and there was an 80-year-old Afghan man in tears and with his hands up. And I just stood there and cried with him. It seemed like the perfect thing to do to me. Um, uh, so certainly that was a powerful experience and continued to be every time I made it to Tawaf for that matter. But that was my initiation, I guess you might say, into the turning into this really remarkable uh, piece of ritual religion that uh, sums everything up with your feet. You know, it's not a word, not a sentence in a book. It's an action, a summary action of what Islam is all about, you know, and what the soul is all about. Amazing experience. So there's that. And then I must say that if I may jump a few days, um, the day on the plain of Arafat was humbling, uh, gut wrenching in a certain way. I mean, when you really take in what's going on there, I understood, it seemed to me, that each person there, although we were all together and there were, I don't know, a couple of million people at least, um, I managed to get myself close to the Jebel Rama, close to the mountain. And I noticed that each individual was at the same time in a group and isolated, at the same time a part of something much, much larger and also an island. And this kind of spiritual confrontation that was going on in silence mostly, although there were prayers quietly being made all day, but a kind of, yes, a vigil, but also an eternal reckoning of some kind. And I don't know what anyone else was doing at that moment or for that day, but I was confronted over and over again with my own feeling that I had come up short in the spiritual department and that there was a lot to do. So it was a very humbling experience for me, a very penetrating experience, I could say. Um, and ultimately a cleansing one because you kind of give up. You know, you agree to be more, you agree to be better, and you accept. And that was my experience of Arafat. And it was, uh, well, you know, it's still with me. It's still with me.
I can tell, I can see that. So, Brother Michael, some people when they go, they do have another like so very materialistic approach to the Hajj. For example, they said that, hey, you know, it was very crowded. When we did Tawaf, it was very crowded. People get close to each other. And on the day of Arafat, oh, too many people, like it's very hot and stuff like that. But you are giving us like a totally new spiritual feeling and the connection that you saw. I'd like to ask you, like at this point of time, did you learn Arabic? Do you know how to speak Arabic, or you're just like doing supplications and dua and prayers in English at that time?
No, I was praying in Arabic. I knew my prayers. I knew how to perform salat, and I had some passages of the Quran memorized, all in Arabic. Um, you know, I have a facility for memorizing foreign languages. I studied languages in college, and I love poetry, so I'm a memorizer. I don't mean to say it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it was easier for me. Um, I must say, amongst the 2 million people, 3 million people that I was with, I don't know how many actual Arabic speakers were there, but I'll bet they were in a minority. because the largest numbers of Muslims were coming from India, Malaysia, Indonesia. They were not native Arabic speakers, but of course they had the background of being raised in Islam and of being raised in the language of the religion, which I did not. So I have, I'm handicapped in that respect, and I'm not a good linguist. I'm good at reading, good on paper, but I'm not good, as a speaker. I'm always ready to learn more, but I would say the most important thing about the crowds that you mentioned was that I can remember vividly coming down from the little hotel I was staying in. There wasn't an elevator, just steps. Coming down the steps and and I was in an Iran that had been through it. It was pretty dusty. And I stopped in the corridor and the door because the crowds were so thick that you really had to kind of pick your moment to step out onto the sidewalk. And I was there doing that when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was a guy from, I think from Syria. I think he was Syrian. And he said, I'll never forget this. He tapped me on the shoulder and he said, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be the Hajj. And he's right, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a real commitment. I am not your usual customer when it comes to crowds. I love crowds. Some people hate them, and a lot of people feel endangered by them. But I remember a moment in the mosque in Medina when the crowds were so thick coming out of the mosque that we were shoulder to shoulder in an ocean of people, and I was literally lifted off my feet and carried forward. And some people, would faint from terror in a moment like that. And I felt kind of elated. So, it's just your personality, I think, to some degree. I didn't feel endangered. Maybe I was being very innocent, but I didn't. So for me, the numbers and the crowds were only worrisome in those parts of the Hajj where I knew there had been problems, like the Jamarat. The Jamarat I treated with great respect, and I got in and I got out pretty quickly because there had been real accidents. There are terrible moments. It's a bottleneck. Yeah. And they had not worked out crowd control there yet, when I was there the first time. Later they did.
When was what year did you perform Hajj in?
I was first there in 1990.
Okay.
I went back in 1997. So I did write my book, and someone at ABC Nightline read it about 2 or 3 years later, and I got a phone call one day. And it was a broadcasting company. It was ABC Nightline, the Ted Koppel show. It was called Nightline. Ted Koppel was the head of it. Still, Nightline goes on. He's no longer the kind of head guy. And 3 weeks later, I was in Mecca with a small film crew. They had got permission from the Hajj authorities to bring an American camera and a Muslim film crew, small one, to the Hajj. It was the first time that cameras from the United States had ever been in Mecca. And it was a real honor. And I was I was not expecting this. And the rapidity with which it all happened was typical of TV, but not typical of my life. I had to really put everything on hold.
This was you, you were the one with the cameras inside Mecca at that time.
Correct, yeah.
Well, Michael, unfortunately, it's 8:30. However, this is a very interesting topic. I'm asking you on air, please, can you be my guest in one of the other shows to tell us this experience? We need to talk more about that.
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah, I need to know your learnings from this Hajj. I need to share some of those learnings with our audience. So I would ask you, please, can you be my guest? Yeah, there's another Ibrahim Muhammad said, Salam, brother Michael, to become a Muslim is a bless from Allah. Then will guide you because He is the one loud you became. Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much, Brother Michael, for that. And I look forward to see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.